Welcome to Cuyahoga Sound. We got Ray Flanagan here today.
All right. Ray Flanagan, introduce yourself. Tell everyone what you do.
My name's Ray Flanagan, and I'm a musician and songwriter, artist.
Cool. About how long have you been playing music for?
Since I was 11, so whatever math that is. I'm going to be 29 tomorrow, so...
Tomorrow? Wow, happy birthday.
18
man.
years.
Yeah, happy birthday.
18, and I like it.
Cool.
I got that Alice
I didn't
Cooper
know
reference.
our birthdays were so close together. Mine's on Tuesday.
Oh,
Yeah, the
next
23rd.
Tuesday?
The 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
My dad's the 22nd.
My dad's
Wow.
the...
Brent Kirby's also the 22nd.
My girlfriend's is the 22nd.
My dad's
Wow.
the...
You know, this is a lot of people that have sex and conceive children on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I've got a brother that is the 20th, and my dad is the 19th. So,
Wow,
yeah. A lot of
Yeah,
them
there's a
coming
lot
in.
of
November.
Scorpios because they his mom got fucked up.
The Sagittarius
Valentine's
over
Day.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right on the cusp.
Oh, you're right
yeah.
you're on the other side of it. What's the last date of it? Is it the 21st?
It's
maybe?
the 22nd or
22nd.
23rd, depending on like who says
What
you're
NASA
looking at
says,
what
yeah.
I say.
NASA's very strict.
Didn't
in
they
their
come out and
rules.
say? Didn't NASA come out or something a couple of years ago and say, "Oh, they're all wrong. They're all off."
Oh, really?
And it actually put me, I think, into Sagittarius, and I was like, "No way, dude! I identify what I've been told. Like the rest of us. I have identified by what I was told as a child."
I refuse to change my ways.
Yeah.
Well, we all get identified like with ourselves as soon as they name us. You know,
Yeah.
like you're not just a part of the universal whole anymore.
Some
you
people,
are
some
Ray.
people change their name.
I've changed my name.
Like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I bet that wasn't his birth name.
No, he was it?
No,
the hell?
it was rock warm Steve Austin. And he changed.
Yeah.
On opposites day. Yeah.
Can we get some symbols in
It was
there?
Steve Williams, I think is his real name. We got him here.
Is it?
Yeah, Steve Williams, but there was another Steve Williams in wrestling, so he changed
You
it to
ever
Steve
watch
Austin.
Stone Cold gives the corporation a beer bath?
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
I was way into that.
I
back
just
then.
watched that today.
I'm gonna have to look at that. I've never heard of
I
that
love
one.
going back and watching the old WWF stuff. Like, so right now my wife's out of town, and
Mm-hmm.
like that's what I do at night before podcasting happened. I'd have like Royal Rumble '91 going.
That's
upstairs.
awesome. I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling when I was a kid, so I didn't really like. I would watch it at my friend's house, but more so we would either play the video games or play with his action figures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always liked the Undertaker. So there's only very few things that I remember about. I mostly know it from video games, but I remember somebody posting something about that video where Stone Cold, and the title of the video is Stone Cold Steve Austin gives the corporation a beer bath, and it's like whatever his name is, Vince McMahon, and then The Rock, and The Rock's in the ring, and they're about to go to they're about to go to what's the big showdown?
WrestleMania?
Yeah, where he's
Alright,
going to be the champion or whatever. But then it's like The Rock's running his mouth, and then he drives a Coors Light truck into the ring. And then they're talking back and forth with each other, and Stone Cold's telling him, whatever the bottom line is and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then The Rock starts talking, and then in the middle of The Rock starts talking, he just pulls out a beer hose and starts spraying everybody down with, and they're like so over dramatic, like it's. Anyways, everybody should look that up.
I remember
Stone
watching
Cold.
that live way back when, man.
You're
Dude,
truly
I had my
blessed.
head shaved like you. I had the goatee. I was wearing the Austin 316. I did like the oh hell yeah when I graduated from high school. That
Oh
was
man,
the
I am picturing
middle.
you with a shaved head and goatee right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll show
we
you
need
pictures
to see that
later.
again.
I'll show you
God bless
pictures.
America.
I graduated.
Wait,
like
you
that,
shaved
man.
your head like that?
Oh yeah, I had it all
Wow, dude,
shaved.
you have great hair for someone
well,
that
thank
chose
you.
to shave their head. Yeah.
Yeah, I would go back and forth. You got to stay one step ahead of the law.
I'm on the other side now. I shaved before I knew it was about to happen.
Yeah.
Mine's like starting to get thin up here, but I'm just kind of like gonna let it do whatever it's gonna do, kind of, because I like the Larry David philosophy of just look like what you are.
Yeah. Go with the classic horseshoe pattern, and
I think mine's
live
just
with
gonna
it.
get thinner and thinner. I don't know if it's gonna like.
Start falling out.
It could
from
turn
the
into a
front.
cul-de-sac though. Either way. Yeah.
Just go with it.
Cool, man. All right, I would like to know like some of your roots, like some of your inspiration from from like childhood. Let's talk about like teenage years. What first got you into like wanting to play guitar?
Well, I think I always wanted to play guitar, like from the time I was little. So, like, there's lots of pictures of me with, like, I used to carry around this plastic toy guitar when I was like real little, and I always just, I think, wanted to play guitar. Like, yeah, my mom sent me a picture the other day. I was like 1.5, and she was pregnant with my brother in the background, and I was like playing this like toy guitar, but yeah, I don't really know. I just think I just always like loved music, and then just growing up with whatever my parents listened to. My mom listened.
Was
to,
your
like,
family musically inclined?
No. I mean, no. My mom would sing with the radio, and she would actually she'd sing. She always sings harmony to the radio, which is interesting, kind of. But that's how
My mom did the same thing.
That's how her
Just the
grandma
harmony.
was, like in church. So I think that's how she learned how to do that. But basically no. But there was music, but it was always the radio. Like I grew up like I've always been someone that imitates, like to the point where I could do an impression of something, and then I think is a good way to learn things in general. It's like, if my parents are here, like, I talk with some combination of both of their voices because that's how I learned how to talk. So it's like the music's the same way. I remember I think the earliest thing I tried to imitate was Doogie Howser, which is Neil Patrick Harris, a young Neil
Young
Patrick
Doctor
Harris.
show.
But then I remember I loved Tim McGraw. And there's like a picture of me like at I think my 4th birthday party or something where I'm like wearing a cowboy hat and boots and stuff, and I'm performing for like my cousins. I couldn't play guitar. It wasn't a real guitar, but I would always sing that song. I like it, I love it, I want some more of it. I loved Tim McGraw. And so and then like In Sync and stuff came out, and my brother and I would fight over who gets to be Justin or whatever. But I would go through these. Music was always like something I would be like obsessed with, but the biggest thing that remains is that my dad is a big. He's not like a music guy, but he's a Springsteen guy. So I grew up with like his Springsteen record collection, and that's something that's like still like it's informed a lot of other things that I've learned about. Like I've found a lot of older music through the Bruce Springsteen's music, who I think is actually a pretty good curator of music history, American music history, at least.
I feel like the attitude of your music, you can feel Bruce's influence.
Sure, I love Bruce Springsteen, and I don't really hide it, but I don't. I also like do my thing, like.
Oh, of course.
But he's definitely someone that inspires me just with his more his like spirit and energy than like always his sound, because there's like things like objectively like that I don't are not pieces I like would take for my own stuff, but I know. So that was kind of like, but
hard
so
to agree
Bruce.
with
So I
every
love
single thing
Bruce.
that
Like I remember,
artist does.
like I actually told my first grade teacher, like when you write down like you want to be a fireman or an astronaut or whatever, I said I wanted to be Bruce Springsteen, and they actually like talked to my parents about it.
Oh, wow.
They were like, why is he saying this? And they were like, I don't know, but I still kind of feel that way. Like I'm very inspired by just his whole career. I always feel like he's had a lot of control over everything he does, and he
does a lot himself.
you never like really hear much of like scandals from him, or as much as I also like idolize like Keith Richards and stuff like that. Bruce was always sort of like about his art and his music, and it was never about like the extreme parts of like the rock and roll lifestyle. As famous as he was at a certain point, it was like I always thought it was cool that he was like didn't glorify the stuff that a lot of people glorify. As much as I think that stuff is also cool, in some, depending on what it is.
And
like,
that was really glorified in
I just
era.
thought it was cool that I just felt, what I'm saying is I felt like he was true to himself and didn't try to be those other things that he wasn't.
Yeah.
But So yeah, Springsteen is a big part. But then I kind of went through a thing where I hated him when I was a teenager, and I was like into like, which is like when I was trying to more like, I kind of went again. Got really into like the reason I really wanted to start playing guitar is because of Randy Rhoads.
Ooh,
So I was super into like Randy Rhoads and Ozzy and Black Sabbath and still am. Like I love that stuff. I feel like those first 2 Ozzy records are like, that's my music.
They're amazing.
I just feel so, cause like Springsteen, I'm so like identified with Springsteen because of my dad and I just heard it from the time I was such a little kid. But like for me, like Ozzy and Black Sabbath and AC/DC and and then I got into like prog rock and stuff when I was a teenager. So I was like kind of this like almost more of a shredder when I started. But I always loved songs. So I was never like, I was always very picky about metal. Like I know a lot of metalheads that are like, they can name all these obscure bands and stuff. Like I don't know if you're into that or
I'm
not.
into metal. Yeah.
But it's like I would only go as far as I always felt like the biggest metal bands had better songs than all the other metal bands. So I realized that I've always been drawn to songs.
Yeah.
So like I love like Iron Maiden and Metallica, and I actually love another one that I feel like is like one of I love the 70s Judas Priest.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't really know about a lot of that stuff because a lot of people know like British Steel Forward.
Victim of Changes and
A lot of people know that song, you know, but like The Ripper or like Dreamer Deceiver
Yes.
or that whole record.
back when Halford had hair.
Which you know he was probably right to shave his head at a certain point because he was looking pretty. But Rob Halford's one of my all-time heroes. I love Rob Halford. I love his lyrics. Like he's one of my favorite lyricists across any. And I think I draw from a lot of the way he would just use like imagery that felt a certain way rather than like I for me like I would take more. That's way more a part of me than like John Prine or Townes Van Zandt or stuff that songwriters say you're supposed to like. Because I have my songwriter stuff that I like. And it's not like I don't like, you know, I could dig John Prine and Townes Van Zandt, but I'm saying I'm informed a lot more by, like, Springsteen and then the world of whatever that brings. Like, I'm a humongous Dylan fan, and Tom Waits and Neil Young. And I like those guys because their music is really... it's just as much about like the tune and the melody and the sound of recordings as it is about just like I'm not so much into when it's just all about words. Like it has to be musical too. You know, the music has to move because nobody has anything that important to say.
I've caught on to that listening to some Beatles stuff lately. Where there's only a couple lines in those songs, but they're fantastic lines. And the music's, you know, just beautiful that goes with it so well.
Beatles, everything is like perfect. And it's like, it's funny because that whole, I lean more, I probably listen to the Stones like way more, like in my day to day. Because listening to the Beatles sometimes is like, it's like listening, it's like, I'm going to sound like a dumb rock guy here, but it's like listening. It's more classical, probably because of George Martin and stuff.
Yeah. George
But it's
Martin.
not. Even when the Beatles are kind of like heavy and dirty, it's not really. It's missing some grease for me.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah, it doesn't have that grit.
A lot of my favorite Beatles stuff is like the pretty Paul McCartney stuff. You know, I know a lot of people. It's not cool to say Paul is your favorite Beatle, but I don't. I mean, obviously they're the sum of everything, but I love like Paul McCartney, his writing, because there's always these big, beautiful melodies and things, and the words would be simple, but they would like carry it like a feeling. And John Lennon's definitely the more of the rock and roll side of everything. Sorry if I derailed your Beatles comment, but
No, you're good, man.
I just was starting to think about it. Like,
We're here to let you talk.
I love the Beatles, man. I do. I do. I mean, you could really just learn a lot about how to put something together by learning about the Beatles. And
They
I
taught
think
me so much about
especially the
melody.
early stuff. Like that album with the Beatles is the one that I really love. But I also love like Revolver and Rubber Soul.
I listened to those on a plane on the way back to Cleveland. I was out in Florida over the weekend. And yeah. Rubber Soul and Revolver were the two that I listened to.
That's like right on the line between them. Like Rubber Soul's like so cool.
Rubber Soul, that's the one. The first CD I ever got. And
Really?
My mom gave that to me when I was like 11.
Man, I wish
I
I
was
would have
still
grown
just
up
doing
with-
piano. I wasn't doing guitar yet, and like that taught me so much about how melodies work with chords. And
Yeah.
and I'll thank the Beatles forever. It's like a huge influence for the way
I always
play
think
and
when
the way I
people
sing.
that say they don't like the Beatles, it's always like something you like is so informed by it. Like I could probably find something that you really like, because here's what I think is that, and I know this from experience, is like sometimes, like I remember being in high school and trying to like listen to Robert Johnson, and it sounded like noise to me, right? So you got to kind of discover things retrograde. Like you got to, it's like I'm born in 1992, so like I can hear, or like now people like now like whatever, like Nirvana's at a point where Nirvana's like classic rock status at this point, right? So it's like to think about that. But you
Cobain's
kind of have to
biggest
discover
influence was
things.
Lennon.
The reason that there's a lot of stuff that gets lost because, like generation to generation, because you kind of have to discover things. You got to push through all the way backwards. Like I grew up with like Bruce Springsteen, so like I got to be able to understand like Bob Dylan and like Sam Cooke and Otis Redding before I can understand like Woody Guthrie on one side. And like if you look at it like it's a tree, like a bracket, before I can. But if I would like jump from Bruce Springsteen to Woody Guthrie, I'd be like, what is this? Or jump from Bruce Springsteen to Hank Williams and go like, what is this? Or jump from Bruce Springsteen and go to like Ray Charles and go like, it doesn't really. Ray Charles is pretty immediate on a lot of things and undeniable even to people now, but you still like are not going to understand that if you don't understand like what happened in between a lot of times. So it takes a lot of work, and you have to really want it. You have to really want to do it. That's why I don't fault people if I'm like if I'm really into like a lot of stuff like early blues, like I love like Mississippi John Hurt and like Blind Blake and Blind Willie Johnson or like Gary Davis. There's all these things I love from the Depression era and like right after that I love that I've had to like work to be able to understand. And so then it's when I like if somebody doesn't understand that and they don't, it's like, oh man, I know how much work I had to do in order to understand that. But I think it's a thing that should be taught because our music history is like if you want to know how people felt in a time period, we're so lucky to have recorded music and have films and have we've had art for centuries and centuries, but most music is only recorded music is like 150 years old or whatever. It's not very old. So, but I think like I think I said this the other day, like, why do I know who Harry Truman is, but I don't know who Bessie Smith is when I'm like in 5th grade? Because they're not from the same era quite, but it's like, you know what I mean? If you, the music and art of a time will tell you how people felt, and it will also often tell you about what's going on in that time period too, just as much as whatever wars and things, which are mostly taught about wars in school. It's like it's a part. It helps like round out the picture of who we are.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important to. It makes me sad if people don't understand sometimes the music of our own people from like the last 100 years, because it's like you should know that just as much as you know all about Hitler, and people know who Joseph Mengele was. You try to do experiments on twins or whatever, which is one thing, but I mean,
Slayer tried to teach us.
They try. Yeah, I mean, man, they did try and teach us, and God bless Carrie fucking King. But
Dan Auerbach's trying to teach us. The last Black Keys album was all Delta blues covers.
Yeah, it's more from the hill country blues, like more modern, like Arl Burnside and right? It was more like Junior Kimbrough, or was there some older stuff?
Like Mississippi stuff. I don't know.
The hill country stuff, though, more I think than the early stuff. Although I think like did they like? I think there's like maybe a Leighton Hopkins tune or something on there, but yeah, I mean,
think so. I saw them perform five tunes off just that when I saw them in Tennessee a few months ago, and they took the time and they brought like two guys. They were in their 70s, 80s, and I forget their names, but they like
there's
played
not
a
a lot
tune
of those
with them.
guys left there. Yeah.
Yeah, they played a tune with them, and probably because it was like in Franklin, about 40 minutes south of Nashville, and did a couple tunes, and then kept going. Here's a fourth tune. Here's a fifth tune, and like by the time they were done, like 40% of their set was this Delta blues stuff, and it seemed like they lost a lot of the audience because they're like waiting for Gold on the Ceiling and shit. But man, I was front row, and
That's kind of just them
so
circling.
inspiring.
That's just kind of them circling back to like their first two records are pretty much lifted from like R.L. Burnside and Junior Kimbrough songs. Like that's their, so they, and then they kind of went off and became their own thing and started to do more just like rock pop tunes and stuff. But
I could
Franklin,
tell.
isn't that where Haley Williams is from? From Paramore?
Maybe.
I think she's Paramore's from Franklin, Tennessee.
The part you're talking about where you dismiss these bands because you don't get the context that they're in.
Yeah.
I'm 100% guilty of that. So we started talking about the Beatles. I was not into the Beatles until a couple years ago because I didn't come into the music to really listening on my own until the 90s. So by that point, I'm like, yeah, you like the Beatles. Have you ever heard of Led Zeppelin? And I thought of it like a competition rather than an evolution.
Oh, okay.
So I went and I was filling in for an old 60s band, Summer of 65. You guys are awesome. So filling in with them and then hearing the Beatles in the context of the music that was around at the time gave me an entirely different appreciation.
You go like, well, these guys are way better than mine.
It was way ahead of what was going on, and it was way different that was going on. And then you listen to when you take that turn from Rubber Soul and Revolver, and then just 2 or 3 years later is Black Sabbath's debut album,
I think the thing I think about the Beatles, like there's like certain Beatles songs that I think entire genres of music were spawned from, where it was like just one song that they never did anything like it ever again. Like me and my buddy Ed Sotelo, he plays bass. He's played in tons of bands like around Cleveland. He played Cobra Verde, the New Lou Reeds, and he plays with the Jack Fords. And then he plays with me with Brent Kirby in a band and my brother in a band called the Sunday Classic that we've been doing. But me and Ed would talk about how this was like Ed's idea, but we've discussed it at length about And Your Bird Can Sing might be like the template for like the first power pop song. That's like cool, and it's like, what is that? And if you consider like when it came out, it's like, where did that come from? It's this crazy. That's what happens when you have people who are like. It's just rare that it happens because those people were so talented and had vision but they also had everything at their disposal. Yes. And time and money.
And the platform.
And everything about it. So it was like, we'll probably never see anything like that again because that industry will never be the same. That was such a little magic window in time that will never happen again. It's just going to keep changing. Yeah. I don't think we'll ever see anything like. We'll see other amazing things.
Nothing like
that. But that was
yeah.
like specific to the 1960s.
Well, yeah, like when you had only 3 channels and the Beatles are on one of them, and everybody's tuning into that. It's going to change the entire, scene of society.
Everything's like that, where people used to just the whole country would get together and watch late night or watch whatever. So many things from whatever it would be, whether it's like Johnny Carson or Dick Cavett or.
Now there's thousands of channels.
Yes.
Now it's like, now it's not even. You don't even have to worry about what programming is. You just watch whatever you want, whenever you want, which has a lot of good things and a lot of caveats too that
Yes.
are like,
Your interests get a little pigeonholed that way.
It's
and
hard.
It's hard to expand the things that you might like that you never knew you might like.
I try to be really intentional about what I watch. You know, I'm the kind of person, which I think actually most people are just like this. So it's not even like, but if you show me 3 things, I go like, yeah, that one in the middle. If you show me 30 things, I like mentally shut down.
Yes.
Like if I like going into thrift stores, but if I'm in there longer than like a half hour, I start to like get overwhelmed and go, I can't choose anything. So it's like, I think I try to find things that I just like, not worry about like what I'm supposed to like or what's trending on places or what other people are even doing. Because, you know, if you're not in my personal circle, like, why I wouldn't know what you were doing anyways. So why do I have to look at what you're doing and feel like anything about it at all? I'm just talking about social media and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that I try to just follow things that I like and then figure out what they're made up of, or anything that moves me, but figure out what it's made up of, and that's how I choose like what movies I watch. Find a certain director or a certain writer that I like that writes screenplays and figure out like what movies did this guy do, and then I try to curate my own. Because if I just sit, you guys probably know it is, if I sit and scroll through whatever it is, Netflix or HBO or Prime, I'll just sit there and just scroll through because it's a commitment to watch something that's 2 hours long or whatever.
Yeah,
so it's like, for me to commit, it's like there's too many options. Sometimes I feel I have too many options at my disposal for what I'm even interested in, so I just kind of stay in a bubble, but follow it outward into other things that
I understand
I'm
what you're
unfamiliar
saying.
with.
Yeah.
Like if me and my girlfriend like say we should watch this movie, you know, like we know like, what movie we want to watch and like we're looking forward to it, and we go and like we really enjoy it. We enjoy each other's company. We enjoy the whole experience, and like as opposed to, you want to watch something? Okay, what do you want to watch? I don't know. What do you
Even
want
if
to
the
watch?
movie,
I don't know.
even if the movie
Let's
ends
see.
up sucking, it's still gonna be better. Like it's still gonna be better.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
You just were like, let's watch this together.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and then you can laugh. If it's bad, you can laugh at it together or whatever. But it's like, it's just easy. It's just better to. I think it's just better to. The way it's like just commit to something and then figure it out later. Because otherwise, you just sit there like, and you never get off the starting line.
man.
So it's like
It's
just
a waste of
get
time.
into something.
Yeah, all we have is time, and you're wasting it just deciding what
Which
you're
is
going to do with it.
perfectly fine to
Yeah.
waste time. It's
But
just that.
deciding what you're going to do with it, like that's not a constructive waste of time. There are constructive wastes of time.
Yeah.
Correct.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
that's a
about?
really good way to put it. Constructive waste of time is most of my, what I do. Constructively wasting my own time.
Yeah,
and
dude,
sometimes
that's
other
one of the
people's.
keys to happiness, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think so, man. The more you can do that, the happier you'll be. Yeah.
Yeah. The line from Office Space, I did nothing and it was everything I dreamed it could be. Like, there's something to that. It's fantastic. But the searching, because there's just so many options,
How
just
am I
go
going to
with
waste my
something.
time?
Or I love recommendations. Like if somebody recommends something to me, I'll usually just go check it out.
Yeah.
Because it saves me what we were just talking about. If somebody, that's why, like yesterday, I watched a couple movies. Monday's my day that I usually just do absolutely nothing. So I just like sit around and eat a gummy and watch movies or whatever I want to do, But I'll look up like, okay, what's Tarantino's favorite movies? And then try and watch them. Even if I watch it and I don't get it on the first pass. Like I watched this movie yesterday called Sorcerer from 1977. It's by William Friedkin. He directed it and wrote it. He's the guy that did The Exorcist.
Okay.
What was it called again?
It's called Sorcerer. And it's
Sorcerer.
about these like 4 guys from around different places in the world. Like one guy's from Mexico, one guy is from France, one guy is from Cuba or something, and then another guy's from New Jersey. And they're all like fuck ups. Like they're all like outcasts, and I don't remember exactly. See, this is where I lost a lot of it, like watching it. But basically, what happens is they all end up going to this place in like Brazil or something, like in South America, and they get in trouble. They get in. I don't know if they get in. Some of them have like debts, or some of them they get in trouble, and then they all end up getting mixed up, and they all get sent to this. People, they're from 4 different other places, and they all go down there, and they have to deliver this. There's these crates of dynamite that are like these people are trying to sell down there, and the dynamite's been sitting for too long, so it's leaking a nitroglycerin, which is not a thing that I knew about until yesterday. And it was like, because you have to,
so you got to be super careful.
If crates of dynamite are sitting, what I learned yesterday, they have to be flipped every so.
Oh, all right.
And the guy goes in to show this guy this like stash of dynamite, and he's like, whoa, how long has this been sitting? And then it has been sitting too long, so it's all this nitroglycerin like on it, and if it goes on a bump, the whole thing will explode and like blow up like a football field or whatever. So it's like, but then they have to deliver it across this like through the jungle in these trucks. So it's this treacherous thing that happens. Anyways, it ended up, it has like an awesome ending, but I found that movie because I was just like, well, I'm gonna find somebody that I respect, like what they like. So I just like looked up what Tarantino likes because I think he's like a genius. You know, I think most people think he is, but so I was like, I'll do stuff like that instead of just opening up Netflix and scrolling through it because, man, there's a lot of garbage on there.
Yeah, I can
and dude, you guys ever go through Prime, like get in the deep recesses of Amazon Prime? Like, there's stuff on there that looks like it was made by high schoolers. It's like, how is this on here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who? Yeah. There must be like some distribution thing for movies. Like we have DistroKid, and I can like. So one thing I did, if you go on my Spotify, I have this song on there called "Ass Shit Combination."
Been pooping since I was born.
Yeah, well, literally, it's just my point is like it's just a voice memo of me like singing some song that I made up, and it's just stupid. And then I posted that cover art, which I ended up pixelating it when I first posted it on Bandcamp. It was just a picture of my shit. Which like when you post something on Bandcamp, like like it gets sent out to whoever's following. So it was like 150 people that it got sent out to. That they woke up in the morning and like it was just a picture of my shit. And then the recording is just a voice memo that I thought was like, I was like, wow, I can just, which I did it all on my phone from DistroKid, which is like a distributor, like whatever. And it was like, oh, I can post a voice memo of me just playing some shitty thing and then have the album cover is a picture of my shit. And then I can post it, and now all of a sudden it's on the same exact platform as Thriller and Taylor Swift. So what's really, when people get mad about like what Spotify pays artists, it's like, well, what's really the value of a Spotify song? Because I can post that on there with no curation, with no quality control. I can just post that, and it goes right up there on the same exact platform. So that thing that I posted has the same value as Teardrops on My Guitar or whatever. It has the same exact value as it.
Yeah.
Right?
Or you're just spouting off a bunch
just
of
like
numbers.
the same way as like I could post the most thoughtful thing on Facebook, but my shitty racist uncle's post has the same exact value as it because we didn't earn that platform. That's just there.
Yeah.
So it's a real weird thing about the value of things on platforms that people aren't really paying for. People pay for Spotify.
Way, man. What, $10 a month? Like,
but so think about $10 a month. Okay,
that's less than lunch.
You pay $10 a month. You and I pay. Maybe I pay for. What is it? Maybe it's $15 or something that I pay for to have like the full Spotify. But whatever it is, it was $11 or something, right? $11 divided by every song on Spotify. That's the value of a song on Spotify.
Oh yeah, man.
That's the value of a play on Spotify. So I don't really I get it. People want to get paid for what they're doing, but it's like
that's
the way it is with everything. It's the complete opposite of what it used to be. You know, you used to have to struggle to like. It would be if you could get a record deal, then you're at the mercy then of what that label thinks is quality enough for them to put out, which created a lot of great records that we love.
Yeah.
But then also there's a lot of great art that's been made that would have never made it onto those things. So it's kind of cool now that everybody has a voice. But in terms of value, it's really just up to like how much people like something.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it feels like value for our whole society is changing. Like there's gonna be.
It's not just music; it's
there's
everything.
there's a tipping point that's coming.
Because I know, like, so, and I like another like, are you guys Sopranos fans?
I'm just getting started.
Okay, so it's like a thing I got into from the pandemic, but I love writing. So I watched The Sopranos over the pandemic twice, but I loved it because I love the writing, which led me to like watch some other things. Like I love this guy Terrence Winter that he wrote for Sopranos, and then he created that show Boardwalk Empire, which I watched, which is great. But then like David Chase, who like invented The Sopranos, and he's like to me like an incredible writer over everything, is that he was like mad because the Sopranos movie just came out, and he was mad that it came out on HBO. Like it came out in theaters the same day it came out on HBO. Like they just released it on the streaming. So it's like people aren't going to theaters. So like how can you really know what your box office numbers would be if it weren't for that? But it's kind of like, well, this is now the world we live in. There's going to be no more of the box office smash, like because a certain amount of people, if they can get it on Disney Plus or get it on HBO, like they're just gonna stay home and do that. Because how awesome is it that you can do that also?
Right. Yeah. The value you're getting for your money.
It's just it makes me rethink things a lot. Like we're just never gonna have. Even if I think about like Taylor Swift's probably one of the last people that's gonna sell, like the amount of records that she sold.
The 10 million albums.
Like. She will never sell the amount of records she sold when she put out Red, which was not even that long ago. But then if you think about like Michael Jackson, or you think about anything from the 90s, it's like it's not things are just completely different now, and I don't really know what the answer is other than like everything is it is about like creating content, right? Mm-hmm. So I think as long as you're creating, it kind of forces you to create like more frequently, if you want to participate.
100%.
Which I think is
and
good
I believe
in some
things
ways.
aren't done changing.
No.
You know?
I think authenticity.
It hasn't settled. Everything's still a lot up in the air.
Yeah. I think being authentic with your content too. Like they've seen enough bullshit. They can see through bullshit.
People
I
can.
like to think people are smart enough.
Yeah.
I think people can. What's frustrating is when somebody genuinely likes creating bullshit. So they are genuine, and then that shit will get fucking 15 million views.
Yeah.
And it's like, well
that's
but then you just go like, well, that's who that person is.
Yeah.
That's not me. So I'm never going to do that because I don't want to.
But that's
play
what
a
that's
banjo
what
version
like
of
recent
Thunderstruck
history
or
is
whatever.
telling us. Recent history is telling us that like that's what's making the money. Like if you want to be famous, if you want to be at the top, if you want to have the views and the follows, so it's not like thinking really. It's not like a lot of substance. It's just entertainment bullshit, or just like
except for like this medium. But then like podcasts, I mean.
Yeah.
But then it's funny because I think it can go too much the other direction, where it's like, I don't know. It's so weird to think about social media and think about the way we all interact. Because I was thinking the other day, like, okay, like I see a lot of people on my Instagram on their stories talking about sharing posts about their mental health or sharing things about what like, oh, we need to change these paradigms, or we need to think like whatever issue it could be. And sometimes I get annoyed by it that I see. Like I'm like, man, why are you putting all that out there? Like. On this platform that's not going to give things back to you. And I think about how, like, for me, I think for artists, like, we put all that stuff into what we create. And I'm not someone that, like, wants to use social media as my outlet for expression for that. I'd rather put it in there and then have a song that's, hopefully it's not specific necessarily to what I'm doing, but it's the truth about what's going on, so that somebody else will look at it and see themselves in it, you know, hopefully. It doesn't matter, though. I just I just write what's true to me. And I think that social media sometimes, it makes me sad when I see people that are, you know, they're using the social media as an outlet of expression for themselves. And it's like, man, that's such something of diminishing returns, because I feel like the platform sort of exploits that. And I feel like it's cool because it creates a lot of dialogue about issues, personal issues and societal issues. But I kind of go like, man, sometimes I think that maybe like 40 years ago, the art contained a lot more of that. The art that like ended up becoming popular contained a lot of those things, whereas now it's a lot more scattered, and it's a lot more
the truth, the meaningful things are diluted.
It's just scattered. Everything's just scattered. There's no like, if you could go on there and find someone you could go on there and find hundreds and thousands of people that all have like 20 million followers that you'll never hear of.
Yeah.
Because people find their own audiences now, which is actually like really like, it's really cool. It just makes for, in some ways, when we had, you know, more curated television and music and movies, we were a lot more unified as a society over those things, you know. If you think about like, if like a movie Jaws came out or something, and everybody went and saw it, was like a phenomenon, or what, you know, it's like there's way less of that, which is really probably good because it allows everybody to have a voice. And these constructs and these glorifications of having these giant big things like the Beatles or whatever that loom over everything, I understand why a lot of people hate that, because you're just told that they're the greatest. And like, you may not think that. You may have something else that you would have found from there that was more your thing. And so in that way, I think that's like a really positive, the way that things are now.
You think population has anything to do with that? Like, there's about 5 times more people on Earth, I feel, than there was in the 60s.
I'm sure it has a factor in it. You know, I'm sure it does. I'm not an expert on it, but I'm sure it does.
I think it would take more time in the past to get your message out to the masses. So you would have time to tailor that message to make sure you were more clear in exactly how you felt. Rather than a tweet, which is like how I feel at this moment.
Yeah.
And you're not really thinking about what about this? What about this? And you can't like edit your message. Not edit it to censor it, but edit it to add clarity.
Well, and give it time to mature and stuff.
Exactly.
You can do that, but it takes a lot. It's just about your own self-discipline.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So it's like you
gotta
can do
control
that.
it.
Yeah, and there's also just and the same thing with, you know, they used to have things called artist development, or like a record label would sign somebody and have them on retainer for like 3 years while they said, you need to go back and listen to these older records and learn about what you're doing before we let you put out your record, because we say you're talent, but we don't. I know there's less of that now, and a lot of it is because, like a lot of what I was saying before about how you have to discover stuff in retrograde, you have to be able to have somebody show you that almost.
Yeah.
Like, I've had some like good mentors that have showed me, you know, that there's, you know, that R&B music is not John Mayer or whatever. You know, like when I was a teenager, because I didn't know. You know, you don't know when you're 18, or sometimes when it doesn't matter about age even. It's just like, that's what I'm saying about where I think it should be taught as part of history, because it's like.
You have any mentors in this scene you'd like to
I mean,
mention?
There's like a bunch of people, but like Brent Kirby's a big one for me, and then Roger Hoover, who's from Kent, Ohio. He
heard that name in a while.
He's another one that like taught me a lot of music, older music that I discovered through connecting with his music and what he was doing and the way he sounded. And then he would point me to things that moved him, and then I could understand them because I could understand the emotion that I felt from him interpreting them, and stuff like I'm saying, like if I maybe would have just if I would have just, you sent me a YouTube link, to some Dave Van Ronk song or something from 1961 or whatever, I would have been like, oh, it sounds like old folk. But for me to actually hear it for what it is, beyond like the aesthetics of the recording and whatever. Yeah, Roger taught me a lot about it and stuff like that. And then it's other, like Becky Boyd's another one that I love to go listen to, that I've learned a lot about songs and singing from her. So yeah, there's definitely, but I'm saying unless you find, you kind of have to find, unless you just somehow just like from a young age are lucky enough to be surrounded by just, curated quality things, it's hard to, you need to learn that from other people a lot of the time. Yeah. At least for me, that's how I am, and then the more about then you can start to like hone in who you are with it. But it takes, I always feel like I didn't go to college, so I always felt like I just learned from older musicians in the area during the time when other people were going to college. I still was like going to school, but it was about like learning about what it is that what I'm trying to do is made up of, because it's like, how many songs are about I love you or you broke my heart, and what makes some of them work and what makes some of them not work. Like we all feel the same, like 15 basic emotions or whatever. Like you're not special because you're sad. We're all sad, we're all mad, we're all happy, we're all angry. We all feel these things. But it's like part of the music history thing is like, okay, well, if I understand like what sad songs in this genre from this time period are like, and then the period before that and the period before that, like you could hear like the way sadness has been expressed in art and music over generations, and learn about all those things. It's like the reason you practice technically your instrument too is because when that moment of the lightning bolt of inspiration comes down, you're gonna it's gonna hopefully come out close to how you really want it to feel.
You've got that
because
foundation.
You're informed by like how Sam Cooke was heartbroken, and you're informed by how Ray Charles was heartbroken, or Hank Williams, like these people that I could bring up this is within whoever it is that you like, and you understand all the different ways to do that technically. It's like you want to use the right wrench, you want to use the right, size screws and stuff. It's like
music builds off its foundation the same way science does. People aren't starting from scratch. They're starting from Galileo. They're starting from, the build up from all of that. You learn all of that and you expand upon it.
Right.
Yeah, and musically the same way. You're not starting from scratch. We're not coming from caveman grunts,
Right. Which is a good thing to like consider too. You know, just what's the visceral thing that comes out of you. But that's what I'm saying is like, I think you inform yourself with these things, but then you don't try and consciously like recreate them. You just inform yourself with them so that, and then lights out when it's come time for you to like create something. You just, whatever comes out comes out. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I think it's like a lot of songwriters will say they like this or there's that, and then you hear the way it comes out of them. It's like, I don't really know if you really paid attention to this stuff you say you like. Not that it has to sound anything like it. It's just that I think the more different types of things you inform yourself with, the closer it's gonna come out to the way you really feel if you learn what other people did that were trying to express similar things. And the cool thing about rock and roll as an art form is that it contains way more than just music. Like you can incorporate poetry and literature, and visual art can inspire the way that the things you talk about with your words, and movies can inspire music and words, and it's like all these. So it's like the more stuff you absorb in a way where you really like analyze it and try and dig into like what do I like about this? Why is it making me feel this way? I think this is like more shop talk of like on the other side of things, like stuff that I think that fans don't necessarily need to know about a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because it makes it seem that's one thing that I think about the modern landscape that I don't necessarily always identify with for myself, is that I like there to be some amount of mystery as to how something was made. Because I like to usually movies I like or songs I like, it's something that I go like, how the fuck did they do that? Or something that just goes like, holy, it's just like, it moves you on a level that you are not thinking about the technical aspects of it. And I think that comes from like stuff that there's like two sides of it. For me, I'm like a white kid that came from Medina, Ohio. I had like a pretty good upbringing. Most of my tumultuous stuff was just like religious stuff from my parents, like a lot of people have. But it wasn't like I had to ever worry about like where I was going to eat or sleep. So I didn't. But then sometimes music, like that's why like a lot of like, if I think about Depression era blues or like the way like a lot of hip hop stuff is, it's coming from experiences that like hip hop's a great example of stuff that sort of like musically comes from nowhere. It just more comes from experiences of people that have really, really hard times, just like that early blues stuff was. And I'm keenly aware that that's not me, even though I'm moved by a lot of that art. So it can come from just like caveman grunt, like visceral experience. But if you don't have that, then it's better to like arm yourself with like knowledge of what it is you're trying to do. And that's why I say it's like, well, nobody really has that much interesting shit to say. Like, where are you coming from? Like, tell me about you, which includes like what things do you like that you're going to include and to color your art and give it some amount of depth through explaining what it is that you enjoy and how you feel things. And the more things that you absorb that you can actually feel, the more it's going to come out of you in a way that explains that accurately.
Oh, man. Very profound.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
4 roses, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
Thank you, man, for that unique insight.
That's just, I just have my way of thinking about things, but everybody's different. But yeah.
It's great to hear everybody's different, like the ways you come up with your art.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something different. There's, we've had people coming in that are like, I learned from doing cover songs, 24/7. And there's people that are,
sure,
I've never touched a cover song in my life. I only do my own art. It's different for everybody.
Yeah, that's exactly sort of it. I learned from like a mix of both, kind of like I could draw on things that happened to me, but I also, when I was young, I still learn. I don't as much anymore actually, but most of how I learned how to play and stuff was from learning what other people did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just learned other people's guitar parts and stuff, and other people's songs, and that informs what I do now.
Yeah, it shapes
and at a certain point though, you kind of gotta balance the two things. Like for me, it's like, I'm at a point where I feel like I really have a lot to say and a lot to create. Too much for me to like know all the chords to every Bob Dylan song or whatever. It's like I learned enough of that to like, I know like what it's about, and I can listen to it now and kind of go. I absorb a lot more just now through just listening than I do actually sitting down and learning it anymore. Which sometimes I feel lazy about, and then other times I go like, well, I'm on a different plane than I was when I was younger, where I have enough of the tools technically that I'm interested in. Like I'm not always interested in like, I don't ever think I'm gonna be able to play giant steps, or whatever. I don't ever think it's not my interest. I know that I could if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But it's not my area of interest. My area of interest is songs and creating tunes and stuff. So it's like, at least now that could change too, because I just love art in whatever form that it takes.
Yeah, I think once you get to a certain point, you start getting like less influence from the fretboard and more from the feel.
Yeah,
at least for me.
I think that's really true. Yeah, I think that's really true. Yeah, in terms of if you're talking about just talking about guitar, like guitar is such an important part of my life that I mean, yeah. I mean, you guys know it's like you can mark points, all kinds of points of your life through what you were doing on the instrument at the time, and like for me, it is pretty inherent in like everything I do. But I try to like I mostly write without a guitar songs because I feel like.
You play any other instruments?
Yes and no. I mean, guitar is like my fluent language, but like on my recordings and stuff, like sometimes I played drums and played bass. Like I could play bass, like pretty like authentically, because it's like because any guitar player can pick up a bass, but they don't always understand like how the instrument works, So it's like but for the most part, I mean I know what the notes on a piano are, but I stick to guitar because I also like to use limitations with what I'm doing. Like I like to have just like like I could use a 57 for so many things. I don't really care about. I don't care about what gear I have as much as understanding the gear that I have. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a big gear. Like I play Mexican Fenders, and I have a 68 Bassman that it works, and I just use that amp for just about anything. I have a couple amps, but what I'm getting at is like I like to more. I think you can do more if you intimately know how to use the tool that you're using. Mm-hmm. You can do anything with it. Unless you decide that, okay, now this thing is stopping me from doing something that I conceive.
Yeah.
If it's stopping you from doing something, then you need to find something else. Mm-hmm. But there's no piece of gear or boutique pedal or amp that you're going to buy that's going to make you sound any more than what you can conceive of it.
Yeah.
So I'm very a believer in just, I don't remember what my point was in getting down this rabbit hole, but I'm just trying to say that everything's about ideas. Like ideas trump everything, I think.
Sometimes when you limit yourself with the gear, you have to become more creative to make that gear get the sound that you're looking for, rather than looking for a pedal to make that sound. Or, looking for the latest thing to make that sound. I need the best microphone. I need the new guitar.
Right.
But, no, I have this gear, but I want this sound. What can I do?
That's why it never works out. Like, if somebody does a thing where they, do a video on, here's how to get Eddie Van Halen's sound or something like that, where it's like, you're not going to get Eddie Van Halen's sound because the way that he arrived at it was through his own, blood, sweat. So you can get something that's, surface level, I'm going to put a Phase 90 and a Marshall and oh, look, it's Eddie Van. It's like, okay, yeah, on the surface level, it resembles it, but it's not it. Because the sound is dictated by his idea of what it was. And unless you understand everything about, the way he was touching the guitar, and you're just not, that's the weird thing about the referential. We can be referential now, which I don't really like a lot of times, neo soul stuff where it's like, oh, we're gonna make this sound like Motown records, but nicer and stuff. It's like, well, it doesn't sound as cool because that stuff was they arrived at it just through what they were observing, not just saying, well, we'll do this like the Motown records. There wasn't as much of that because recorded music was such feeling around in the dark at that time.
Yeah,
I think it's good to just trust your own instinct and not worry about if it's the correct thing. If it sounds good and feels right, it's about what your idea is and about what you're experiencing, it can just get really convoluted, I just think I like to work with limitations because it if I feel like I'm expressing what I want to express, it's really not limitations. Because I don't mean to say I want to put boundaries on, but it's okay, I have this idea. Here's what I have at my disposal. Mm-hmm. Again with the if you show me 3 things, I'm gonna go the one in the middle. If you give me 50 things, I'm gonna go like, I don't know. And now I don't. Now I have to think about all these things that are not have nothing to do with what I'm trying to express. It's about you're debating like which you got to do a shootout of like 20 different microphones to like record a snare drum. It's like, what are we doing here? Is this even important? Like, what's important about
The best microphone is the one you have there.
Yeah, because it's about what you have to do, and it's like like somebody that knows how to use a hammer is gonna like use the $10 hammer better than someone that bought some carbon steel fucking
no matter what you're playing through, like 90% of your tone's coming from your fingers.
It's just gonna be
experience.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's really true. It's like that is a cliche, but like it is true. It's like most of your idea of what your sound is gonna be as a guitar player, which is where I'm speaking from because that's what I know, is really just about like what you're doing with your hands. And then, you're going to get tonal things that are different if you're playing through, like, a 9-volt battery amp versus a supersonic, whatever. It's like, you're going to get, but really what's coming through it is really just mostly you.
Yeah, man. Pedals can't help you with phrasing. Pedals can't help you
with it. They can't help you with phrasing. They can't really help you. They can't really help you with overall tone either because the tone is really decided by you. Obviously, like if you're at somewhere the trebles just turn all the way, it's like and it's piercing. Like that's more of a physical thing than like your tone. Your tone is really just the way you touch the instrument, and there's so many factors on a guitar that make what a note sounds like, as opposed to like a piano, which is way more like you press C and you can do it with varying amounts of like dynamic level, but it's always going to be that key. Whereas like even to get one note out of a guitar, it's like so many factors. How hard are you pressing the string? What size is the string? Are you using a pick or not? What thickness? How thick is the pick? What part of the pick are you hitting it with? What part of the guitar are you striking the string at? Like there's all these things that factor into what it sounds like when you introduce other elements into the chain,
And not to mention your intention of what the note you're wanting it to sound like, and like what you're trying to tell yourself.
Yeah, how do you conceive the note that's supposed to be coming out? What's your idea of how this is supposed to sound, and like, are you accomplishing that or not?
I love how deep this is getting. We've been just kind of talking about the scene. We've been talking about bands and people and connection, and like we're getting into the music and the meaning and the philosophy.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Great,
but I don't really I guess I just don't which I don't know I don't really care like how other people view it. Like I don't really pay attention to what other people are doing that much. Like, and it's not because I don't care. It's like if something moves me, I follow it. If it doesn't, I just go like, cool. But I'm busy like doing my own.
Yeah, and
and that's really it.
Whether you know it or not, you are an inspiration. You're an inspiration to a lot of musicians in this scene, and like cool. what you accomplish, how busy you are, and how your attitude is towards it. It's what people aspire to. It really is because
thanks, man.
So a lot of things you're saying are going to go a long way. I'm really glad we're talking about this
cool.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I love talking about just like philosophy of things and like because it's really just like my day in and day out of like how I think about what I'm doing, and I mostly just think about.
You're true to yourself, and that matters a lot.
Yeah, which amounts to like lots of times, I see things that are like successful, or people tell me, "Have you heard of this and this thing?" And I'm like, "Oh," and then I go like, "I don't." Okay, fine, good for them. Like I have no. It's just like I'm on my own thing about it, and it's not. Yeah, I just also noticed too. I've been in situations and been around people that are either doing fairly well. Like I've been around a lot of like road dog type people, and been around people that come around and are like really popular for like even like if I just think about locally, it also works on a national level, and I see what people's motivations are sometimes, and like a lot of things that come in and go away. It's like, oh, like, they didn't maybe reach the level they all thought they were going. And I really listen. Like the other thing about me is that I work solo mostly, because it's really, really the more people start to have lives and become more of adults. You guys know this, like having a band is what a chore it is to have 5 people in the same room at the same time, let alone go on the road with, have 5 people that all want to go commit to that. It's like, so I work mostly solo because there's a control freak aspect of me that I have, that I'm like, I don't want to deal with drummers. I don't want to deal with trying to find the right drummer and a guy that not only plays the way that I feel like I want them to play, or not that I want them to play, but someone that I just gel with the way they like to play, but then also has the personal life to commit to like my art. It's like really hard, So, but my kind of like thing is like, hopefully, what I'm saying is like, you see things. I just think like, I know 20 years from now, I'm going to turn around and go like, I'm glad I didn't stop. Because every year, I've been full-time not for very long. So who knows? I could be working in a mailroom next year. But probably not, because it's my decision to do that or not. But so it's been like 5 years that I've been like quit my warehouse job and like have been just playing music. And every year I've turned around, and no matter if I'm just fucking playing in bars and restaurants and shitty things, it's like I turn around and go, because I do it because that way all my time is consumed by music. And if I have to go play, whatever, if I have a fucking Saturday where I got to play 3-hour gigs or whatever, and it's like so the amount of time it takes to make $100 as a musician, I think about how long it takes to make that in a warehouse or wherever the fuck. And it's like, okay, like you could go eat shit and deal with these people that want to hear Wagon Wheel or whatever, which I don't do. I just find places that respect me, because I don't give a fuck as long as the staff and the owners are cool with me and what I'm doing. I don't give a fuck what the people want to hear, really. I just don't like. And I actually revel in, like, usually, like, some drunk girl that wants to hear shit, her boyfriend's going to think it's funny that I don't give her what she wants. So it makes me, happy I just am happy just to play. And I just do my thing. And you find a lot of spots where people, like, because I also work on having material for every situation, that's, like, that I feel like is, like, this is maybe not like they fucking want to hear Take Me Home Country Roads or whatever. But I want to have something that I feel like could stand up next to that. But it's from my point of view, and it's not just me like reiterating, because I feel like I have that, and I understand that other people don't feel like they have that. So I don't have anything against, anything else that anybody does, no matter what it is. I have plenty of friends that I'm friends with Paul Lewis and Billy Morris and shit. Like I don't give a fuck, and that's like not shit that I would ever do. Those guys, they do like 80s like hair metal. Yeah. But I have respect for what they do. Even though it's not anything I would ever want to be part of.
What are some of your places that do recognize this, that do help you out, that where they fit that? Because we want to promote these, venues as well as the artists.
I played this place called Forest City Brewery. The owner, Jay Demagal, is so awesome. I play there the third Friday of every month from 5 to 7. I play there just by myself. And I just play my songs, and it's like a happy hour thing. But Forest City's cool because they've kind of curated this. Now they have like Sundays is like the music day there, 3 to 6 in the afternoon. And there's like everybody, like somebody's got the first Sunday, second Sunday. It's like one of those deals. So yeah, like one Sunday a month, Thor Platter's there, and he has his band called Country Honk. That's like,
Thor Platter's good.
They just do like country from the 50s and 60s, primarily, but they do some later stuff too. They do whatever, they just do country music, and that's like a killer band. But then and then there's the Lake Erie Roots Collective, which is Anthony Papaleo, Anthony Tadeo, and Andrew Bonas, and they just do like whatever they feel like roots type music, and they're more players. Those guys are like session type players. But and then there's and then I
played at school with that guy, Anthony Papaleo.
He's my roommate and my bandmate as well. He's amazing. But and then like Brent and I play there with my brother and Ed Sotelo. We with our band, the Sunday Classic, the fourth Sunday of every month. And then there's another Paul Kovac, who's like multi-instrumentalist that kind of leans in the country, sometimes bluegrass direction. He plays there one Sunday a month, so that's a place that like it's not necessarily all original music. It's a lot more like folk and roots type musics that are there. But but they like when Brent and I play there, we pretty much just do our own stuff, and like we play there. We have monthly gigs there, and that place is awesome. I have some other places I play. Like I play at this place Comida in Hudson. It's just like some fucking Mexican restaurant. That's like they're just cool there. The staff's just cool. The owner's cool. He's into music. He's a percussionist and drummer himself. So it's like I find spots where it's like they appreciate someone's ability to fit the mood of a place without having to like play a certain playlist or something. Because a lot of times it's like I remember like I grew up like in Brothers Lounge, and it'd be like fucking Disco Inferno would play in the back or whatever, that 80s band or some of these franchise like bands, the cover bands, and it's like they would play back there, and sometimes like it's not like they're always packing the place, so it's like really what's the fucking difference sometimes, or like
hell yeah.
It's just like I'm just talking about the stigma of like, oh yeah, if you want to play in bars, you get. He's like, no, if you fucking can fit the vibe of a place, if you can fit the mood of a place and pay attention to like what the room is doing, I mean, you could really play anywhere, and you don't have to adhere to any. If you can do that, you don't need to fucking worry about like what your playlist is. And places that are concerned about that, I just don't go back there usually, which almost never happens. You find that like you go in somewhere and you really try and like, if you really, really are trying to like fit the vibe and fit and read a room, like, and you have a certain amount of, you have material to do it with, like, it's never going to come up.
Yeah.
But there are places where I play and I go like, I don't give a fuck if I ever play at that place ever again. Like, I don't care what the pay is. But I just try to find spots where people respect music, like whatever it is, and respect musicians that, whether their skill is to read a room with just whatever their list of covers. Like, I don't know if you guys know Chris Hatton.
Yeah.
Chris Hatton's fucking amazing, and he just does his own whatever songs he feels like, and
his
like
own version of all the covers.
And his own version of them, and he doesn't necessarily like play what people want to hear, even though he is, if there's a request and he can fucking figure it out in his head because he knows a million, he'll go for it. But it's like, he's to me, like one of my favorite guys around town that he's a one-man show that goes into places. Or Becky Boyd, she's awesome. Like, she just like, does a lot of classic songs and things, but she also has her own like songs that are great too. But there's lots of ways to approach playing in bars and playing for the general public, which is, you can also learn a lot from doing that way when you go and play at a venue somewhere, or you learn skills playing those 3-4 hour bar sets that a lot of times people that are just like, oh, we play like twice a month, we play at Mayhall's and the Happy Dog or whatever, like, people that are, you don't learn certain things about pacing and the way to like make something unfold over time. For me, it's like, I feel sometimes it's almost hard to write like a 30-minute set or a 45-minute set because I'm so used to like having to play more than that. But also like, I feel like I can play a 45-minute set of just like knockout thing after knockout thing because I'm used to having to spread it out over way longer than that. And still with the mentality of like wanting each thing to be a knockout thing. Is it a clapper?
No.
It just went out. Well, that's maybe my sign that I'm rambling too long. But that it's still yeah. That's the thing I like about just kind of being in the trenches and like clocking hours at bars and restaurants is like I feel like it's just clocking hours playing for people that don't give a fuck about you most of the time. And if you can win even a couple of them over in a thing, not that I try to win them over, but if you, because I'm not concerned with like what they want to hear, but if what I'm doing is like, and a couple people are like interested, like that makes me know that if I have a captive audience that's there to just eat up whatever you're doing, like you could take it in any direction that you want to take it then. Which can be disconcerting when sometimes when people are actually listening, if you like play a house show where it's like, whoa, I'm not used to people paying this much attention to what I'm doing, you know? Like it's, I don't know, man. But all I know is like, I like that. Even though and next year I plan on starting to travel a lot more. Because I'm just like ready to start leaving the nest after like half a decade of just like playing in bars in Cleveland and Akron and Kent. Like I'm just ready because I want what I'm doing to be more based around what I'm creating than just the fact that I'm going to get recommended for gigs all the time, which is like only leads to more gigs. Like whatever you're doing just leads to more of that.
Yeah.
You know, like my fucking bar and restaurants is only going to get me more bar and restaurants, probably.
So where are you looking to expand to?
It's just anywhere. I think the cool thing about Cleveland is we have all these arm's reach places. Like, it's fucking only a couple hours to Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, Columbus, Cincinnati, Louisville. Like, it's all these places.
Even Buffalo's got a nice scene.
Yeah.
And Buffalo's, right? Buffalo's cool, yeah. And I've been places with other bands. Like, I did some traveling with Roger Hoover and some traveling with this band called the Speed Bumps out of Kent. Which they're not really around anymore, but I'm actually playing with them in December. They come it's been a couple of years since they've been played, but
where is that at?
The GAR Hall. It's December. Mm-hmm. They do like a weekend there, so it's December 4th or December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They do like because the GAR Hall, which is like a great hidden venue. It's in Peninsula in the valley in Cuyahoga National Valley.
It's not far from here.
No, not at
No,
all.
it's like 30 minutes. It's really not. It's in between kind of
from
like,
right here where we're recording. It's not that far.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
we're in Northfield.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah,
Northfield
so
Center.
you're
so.
like 20 minutes probably
Yeah.
from there. Yeah. So the hall is great. Have you guys ever been there?
I have not.
It's a great listening space. It's like 100 people it can fit. Like that's like the cap. But so then Speed Bumps are like pretty popular in Kent area. So like, yeah, they do 3 nights there, which is like, they've been doing it for the last like 3-4 years there, and it's always cool. But
do they still do the 2-drummer thing?
no, it's mostly just Danny Jenkins, Patty that used to play with them. He's hasn't really. Sometimes I think maybe for special shows I've played with them where there's both of them, but for the most part it's just Danny Jenkins. But but I've done some traveling with them, and I've played in like Columbus, and there's a place in Illinois called the Law Office that's really cool that I've played at on my own. But for the most part I haven't done much touring on my own, and I'm ready to like start doing that just because I feel like too in Cleveland it's like I'm starting to feel like people get too used to you just being around, and it's like, even though I pretty much most of my gigs I don't post, you know, because if I'm playing like 5 times a week, like I'm not gonna post them because like nobody's gonna come at all.
Yeah.
So, and I also choose to work solo because that way if I have a show with my band in town, I can try to make it more of an event.
What's
I'm
your
also
band?
just
What's your band?
Ray Flanagan and the Mean Machines is my new band.
All right. Anyone might be fits in it?
Yeah, my brother Russ is playing drums. Dave Shaw is playing guitar and playing keys and singing. Joe Boda's playing bass. Anthony Papaleo's playing guitar and singing and playing fiddle sometimes. and then me doing so that's them. But yeah, so we're just trying to like we just played our first show like last weekend, and we're like just trying to be intentional about the shows that we play. Like if we could have one cool show like every 3 months, I think that'd be a good way.
Was that the
be about
Winchester?
it. We played the Winchester on Friday. We're playing the Happy Dog on January 8th. And then I know the next thing after that I think is like in May at Beachland Tavern. But like I'm not trying to be like take gigs that if people are like I'm just gonna say no to stuff because I only want it to be like here's your chance to see us and that's it. You know, like I don't want it to be. I want to create some exclusivity about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm playing all the time. You know, you could stumble into some bar and there's a, you know, some chance that you might just find me. You know, like.
Yeah, I remember I was bartending at Thirsty Dog downtown one day.
And
you just started setting up. I'm like, I know that guy.
Yeah. A lot of people have stories that I don't. I remember that, but some people like, yeah, I remember when I was like, dude, I don't. Most gigs I don't remember because it's like. If it's one of these where I'm just watching my clock, it's like sometimes it is, you know, and it's just like a lot of times too I just do something and move on to the next thing, you know. I don't really like reflect on something unless there was something I really liked about it that I want to continue to incorporate. But if it's just like a lot of just bar gigs, I suppose also sometimes I drink at a bar gigs, you know, if it's really like where that becomes part of what I'm doing, you know, it's like, so I don't know. Yeah.
Great, man.
I don't know what I was just, the point of anything I just fucking said was, but cheers, you guys.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers one time.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Would you like to mention or give a shout out to any promising up and coming artists you've met in the last year or so? Or I know it's tough with like how limited it was in 2020.
Yeah.
You see anyone emerging now that has grasped your attention?
Yeah, I really like this band Orifice Roth, the Skylar Keffer's band. He's not I mean, he's been around. I've known Skylar since high school, but he's got a newer band that's only been around for maybe like a year or so. And he's got some younger people in the band that are kind of newer around the scene. Like,
Is that who you just put some material out with?
Yeah, I just did a split with them because he was kind of like, I've known Skylar for a long time, but we've never really we've always been in different circles and stuff. He used to be in that band Item. That we used to be a band that was like kind of based out of Mayhalls, kind of formed out of, but at least that's my view. I know.
I remember Item. I never seen them play.
They were like really popular. But
was that an acronym? Because I saw that it was all capitals.
You know, I don't know. I've never asked anybody about that. Dylan Glover, who used to work at Mayhalls, that was like his project, I think, mostly. But Skylar's got this band Orifice Roth. I think is really great. This bass player Dizzy, she's like awesome, and then he's got this fun rhythm section. The drummer, this guy Lip, who's only 21, and I didn't realize how young he was. They're just like it's cool because the music's like kind of moody and it's dark, kind of on darker side of maybe what I would call like Americana, I guess. Like but then like to watch them, they're just like super fun to watch. Like they're very animated, especially like the rhythm section. They're both very animated, so it's like so fun to watch them. Let me think. My friend Abby Rose. These are people I just played a show with, it's because I'm a fan of them. I try to put together a bill of people I'm a fan of. She's a great songwriter. I really like Free Black from Akron. It's Holbrook Riles and Flaco Torres. They're like a two-man hip-hop group, and I just like really dig Flaco's energy and his lyrics, and Holbrook is just like one of the most incredible drummers that I've ever been around. He's just like, and he's an artist too, you know. So I'm a fan of them. I think Indre. I don't know if you guys have heard of her. She's like from Akron. She's awesome. She's like this young girl, just supremely talented singer and pop songwriter. I'm sure she's gonna do all kinds of things that we don't even know about yet, but I think she's awesome. I think Braxton Taylor.
Braxton Taylor.
Yeah. I don't know I can't remember the name of his project. This is just Smith Taylor or something. Whatever. Anyways,
I don't know what he's doing now.
He's amazing. I fucking
Fox.
think that record he put out is so awesome. It has Brent Hamker on guitar and has Danny Jenkins on drums, and I think that what he's doing is really awesome. And then I like Malorilla. I think Marco Ciafani. That's what I say. I think
That's who was supposed to be in here earlier today.
Oh, Marco?
Man, yeah.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
he had to cancel, and then we got Charlie to come in.
I think that dude is so talented. He can write all kinds of stuff. Like Malorilla is obviously more of like in the metal, Queens, the Stone Age tinged sort of a thing, but it's still like his own thing. And then, but he can also write like beautiful ballads.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of Marco. I like. There was somebody else I wanted to mention. Maybe I'll think of it. There's a lot of cool music in Cleveland and Akron. Bethany Joy, her and Dan Soha, they're awesome. I think Ben Gage is doing some awesome stuff. I don't know, there's a bunch of people that I think are doing awesome stuff around town, and coming out of like, I'm from Medina, so I came up like. I most probably identify with Cleveland because it's the biggest city, so you just say Cleveland. Cool. But
where's Medina in relation to Cleveland for those who don't know?
45 minutes south of. Tell the folks at home.
Yeah.
That's a Norm Macdonald joke. Tell the folks at home anyways. Yeah, so I like came up a lot in Akron and Kent too. Mm-hmm. Whereas I find a lot of like Akron people don't know Cleveland people, or like Cleveland people don't know vice versa. Mm-hmm. There's Kent's its own little like pocket of things. The Buffalo Riders are a cool band that's around. I think they're awesome. Kind of like a heavier like a trio thing. It's like kind of some of these angry political lyrics and stuff.
Have you heard Among the Willows?
I haven't heard that band. Who is that? Is it maybe somebody I know, or is it just somebody? Maybe it's the second time I've heard of that actually.
It's a couple Schilling brothers.
Yeah,
which
a couple
are
of his brothers.
My brothers.
Oh, okay.
Do some real cool blues rock.
Yeah, it's
okay.
In the vein of like Stevie Ray Vaughan type stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be on hopefully next week. We'll see. One of my brothers just got married down in Florida, so I just came back from that.
Congratulations to him.
Yeah,
Right on.
congratulations,
Hey,
Cody and Christy.
Cody.
Congratulations, you two lovebirds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a love of your life, Ray?
Huh?
4 roses.
Man and God-in-law. Yeah, no, I don't. I don't. Not anymore. I used to love.
You don't have
Pride.
Randy
But I
Rhoads.
don't. I don't. Now I try to be a humble, follower of the great beyond.
That sounds like a good sign off to me.
It does to me too.
Have you guys ever seen that movie Mandy?
No.
No, I might have to watch it later.
That's the best movie ever. You guys need to watch that.
Mandy.
It's Nick Cage at his best. It's the best. I watched that movie like 6 times over the pandemic, and I showed it to everybody. It's one of the best movies to watch. It's just the reason I keep watching it is because I will always be like, "Have you seen this yet?" And then I like to watch it with somebody that's never seen it, just so I can get their feeling of them being like, "What the fuck." That's my last thing I want to say. Is everybody should watch the movie Mandy with
Mandy.
Nick Cage.
Mandy.
It's sort of a drug movie, kind of, but it's the most. Dude, I've never seen anything like it, and it's sort of a heavy metal movie too.
All right.
But it fucking rocks. Thank you guys.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Ray Flanagan,
Yeah.
thank you very much for being a guest on our show.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
This will be out very soon.
Hey, I want to
Yes,
say this. I want to say, God bless America
God bless America.
and all his children.
Peace, guys.